What's up, guys? It's Dave, Andy, and Josh. We came as Romans, and we're going to talk about our new album, Darkbloom.
So when we started to record the record, we flew to LA to Drew Folk's studio, and Andy and I got there a few days before Dave, and we sat down first day, just kind of talked about everything. We showed all the demos, kind of figured out what was missing from the record, something that uh, I guess wasn't there, sonically and lyrically as well. And then we just sat down and wrote Darkbloom in like a few hours. It was kind of wild. And then we were like so amped on the song. We had no lyrics yet. And then Dave flew in, and Andy and I are like, dude, Dave, we wrote this track. It's so awesome. And he kind of thought we were just like hyping him up. And then like we get to the studio the next day and we play the track for him. And he was just kind of like, oh shit, you're not hyping me up. Like this song is actually awesome. And then Andy actually found the word and concept dark bloom. So I'll let him take over on that one.
Yeah, so Josh and I flew in a couple days early, like you said before Dave got there, and we were just kind of messing around with stuff. And again, within a couple hours, this awesome track had formed. And I was reading this book on shadow work, and there was this cool word named dark bloom that came in and was just kind of like not letting something kind of darkness like consume your whole soul and body, and you don't want to like become that. And then we kind of took the play on words of like a flower, like a lotus. It's the only flower that can bloom in the darkness. And so as a metaphor for our band kind of going through like a super dark time, it was almost like a statement of like, even in the darkest of times, you can bloom and grow and become something bigger, stronger, better, or more than what you were before. So that was just like a really cool concept off the bat, and we were all really stoked on it because it was really hard for us to tour in the past and whatnot, and it's still sometimes it's hard to tour, but we wanted a statement to be like, hey, like we're overcoming this like really tough thing to get through. So it was just kind of like a very cool opening statement, and the pieces just kind of fell together. So it was really cool to see it all unfold.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I was really excited coming in to hear that the guys were excited about a song, but to be honest, I kind of thought they were just hyping it up to sell me on it because I hadn't heard it yet. So I think they wanted me to go in to it excited, and I didn't believe that it was as exciting as they said it was. But when I got there, I like freaked out. I took a lap around the room and put our producer in a headlock, and he's not the most touchy feely guy in the world. So I don't know that he's ever been headlocked before, but I did that. I was really excited. Started high fiving everybody, and then we were off to the races from there. I want to preface this song is I think my favorite to perform so far. I like it because it's all over the place for my voice. I think I use every single part of my voice that I know how to currently do in this song. So this song became one of my favorites, actually.
Yeah, Plagued is actually the oldest song on the record. I I wrote that song with our buddy Nick Sampson and my friend Ryan Latrue. Um, and man, I think that was in like January of 2020. It was pre-COVID. It was before
Yeah.
Tacon Seed Tour. It was like the first like demo that I had sent to the guys that like everyone was like sold on it. That they're like, yeah, this is it. Like everything else needs some work, but like this one is good. And yeah, I mean, we just kind of took it into the studio, but sat with Drew, changed a few things, but like that song is actually like pretty close to what it was, writing it almost 3 years ago now, which is crazy to me because I had like this anxiety that it was going to come out, and I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be relevant anymore. It's too old. Um, but the reception has been awesome, and you know, that song just lyrically came from a much darker point in my life. It wasn't too far too many years passed when we lost Kyle, and I was still uh I was in an anger and upset stage, you know, of that grief. And so that's where all those lyrics came from. And personally, I think that Dave was able to like truly express the emotions behind those lyrics in his voice like perfectly. I was I'm just I don't know. I can't really say that because he's like in my band, so obviously like I love him and I think he's great. But I think his performance on that song is like top notch. Like he was saying, just like every aspect of his voice to convey what the lyrics of that song actually meant.
Thanks, man. It's been something we've been trying to do for a really long time, actually, and it just hasn't worked out. He was on tour while we were in the studio, or we had deadlines to meet, or I don't know, just weird things always seem to happen where we couldn't make it work, even as far back as when, you know, Kyle was alive and working on records. Even before our most recent record with Kyle, we were trying to get something going, but it finally worked on this record. All the stars aligned, and it all worked out, and he nailed the part and added some of his own creativity to it. So just made an already exciting song super exciting.
Yeah, it was cool because Black Hole was actually the last song written on the record. So it was funny because we kind of had an idea of like what kind of song we wanted. And as we just started piecing everything together with Drew, it just turned out to be such a fun, cool, fast-paced, like high energy kind of song. And we had been looking on the record to find a place originally for Caleb somewhere, and we were like, I think it'd be cool on this song. And then when we got it back, we're like, this is fucking sick. This is, the stars aligned perfectly on it. So that's one of my favorite tracks on the last record, especially how it all just kind of came together.
Yeah, it got like pieced together over like almost like the entire like month that we were there, because we would write something that we thought was going to be that track, and then it turned out to not be that, and then we'd write more, and then we'd write more, and it was just like we had to get all like the I don't know, the bad ideas out to get to the good ones. And we ended up sitting down with Zach and Josh Strock in LA to write some music. We're just like, let's try it. We have a day off, might as well go hang out. And you know, KJ was Drew's like engineer assistant on Cold Like War, so we had known him for years as well, and he was friends with Kyle and everything. And so we just sat down to write this track, and then we showed it to Drew the next day, and he was like, yeah, I think we finally got there after writing like part after part that like wasn't good enough to make this track what it should be, what the record needs for that slot.
This song was probably the most interesting. I wish we had like video documentation or something of how this all came together. It was pretty wild. It started off as one idea and turned into three other ideas from that, and then did like a 360 and turned into something completely different. But in the end, this song's been the most hyped song we've played live. The crowd just goes off. Crowd loves it. In the end, I'm glad we made the decisions we did, but I'll let somebody else take over on the details.
Yeah, it was a windy road to get to the end of that one. And then we had like, eventually we have this part in the middle that's just kind of like a beat with the keyboard part going. And we were like, oh, maybe we could get someone to like rap over this part. And Drew was like, hey, I have a friend who would be perfect for this. And like, not in any rude way, but like I had not heard of Zero at that point. Also, I don't really listen to rap, so that's not a surprise. But he was like, yeah, I got my friend. I'll send him the track and see what happens. And he sent him the track, and Zero sent something back like, it was like 30 minutes later or something. It was like ridiculously short amount of time.
It was quick.
And then Drew was like, I guess we'll see what this is. And he played it. And we all just kind of like jaw dropped, looked at each other like, this is the coolest thing that our band has done in a long time.
Wasn't he like walking to get his wisdom teeth pulled out or something? He was like, yo, I'm going to surgery real quick. Here's the part, but you know, I come back, I'll send you the lyrics, and I'll like, you know, pretty it up a little bit, but make sure you like it. And we're like, what? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he shot it over super quick. But it was really funny too because that song originally evolved. Originally, we were trying to write something for like the NFL. Like we wanted to write something for uh, like a football team or some kind of team to walk out to like some big epic like get ready kind of music, and we were just writing it, and it just felt so contrived and forced that eventually we were like, maybe we should just make this song just fucking heavy and forget this. Anytime we've tried to write for a different motive other than like ourselves or like this vision of like, oh, you could do something cool like this, it never turns out well. So we started doing that, and then we were instantly like, nope, like nope. And the producer was like, well, what if we added like another breakdown on top of this breakdown? And then we started stacking it, and then
And we take the old breakdown and make it the chorus breakdown.
yeah, and then after that, it was even some of the lyrics were still kind of getting to that point of they were still like a little too like go team kind of thing. And then there was one night where I was Googling, I literally typed in evil biblical shit or something on Google, and it was like draw the dagger, cut the head off the snake. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And then went back in, and then from there we're like, oh, we can get evil and pissed off with this. So then all the ideas started flowing out of everyone, and then on top of all that chaos, we added Zero, which was the perfect cherry on top. So that's one of my favorites. I love the evolution of that song and how wild it went from going from possibly an NFL, team song to the most pissed off, heavy song that we have, I think.
That's another one that musically wrote a while back with my buddy Nick Sampson. And then Andy and I ended up taking a trip to Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Tennessee.
Nashville.
One of those states. I don't know. And we met Keith, who plays guitar in Breaking Benjamin. And we sat down with Keith in his basement, and this is our first time meeting him. Our management was like, hey, do you want to try to write a song with Keith? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. So kind of just explained everything that we were going through and, how we were feeling and stuff. And so we were able to write the lyrics and all the vocals to that song with Keith at his house. And one of my favorite parts about that song is how specific we were able to get with everything. Using the timestamp of 740 and everything, it feels really like close to me when I listen to that song, just because of how specific we were able to get without like hopefully fans losing interest. No one wants to listen to a song that they can't possibly relate to in any way, but if there's a balance between something that's really specific to us and what we went through, and then, something that is, a general feeling that everyone who's experienced loss has gone through. I think that as long as we hit that balance, then, our fans really, really are kind of pulled to it. That's my favorite song. That's my favorite song on the record. Yeah. I love that song. It's my favorite song on the record. One of my favorite parts about that song is that I'd feel like, and once again, I don't know if I can really say this because he's in my band, but I feel like that's like Dave's best emotional song on the record up to that point. Right before we go into the last chorus, there's a real high note that Dave just crushes, and I still sometimes cry when I listen to that song just because of what it means to me. But I'll let the other guys chime in because that's kind of sad, but it's a great song.
No, all these songs like were pretty easy to put emotion into, obviously, because they come from a very real place for all of us, and I appreciate that, Josh. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's a situation that's relatable for all five of us, and yeah, I was able to really pour my emotions into that song, and all these songs, but that one in particular just really struck a chord with me and how I was feeling at the time. And So I think I was able to put the emotion into it that it needed.
Yeah, that song. It's funny because even the way that the record's written, it's kind of almost like it's not the exact steps, but it's a lot of almost the flow of a grieving process. And you kind of have this like you start, like, oh, I'm gonna continue, keep going, and you have all these songs that are like, oh, just like muscle through it. And then Golden is kind of when it starts to break and you start to get a little bit more emotional with certain things on that kind of level. But then when One More Day hits, that is kind of like I don't like the turning song a bit to where you can start to really feel that emotional, like, oh man, this song is going to maybe make me want to cry or like let go of something. Or that's when, in my opinion, like One More Day it hits such an emotional level to where that was where the record really starts to turn. And you can feel it, especially in Dave's voice and in the lyrics and stuff like that. So that's definitely one of my favorite tracks, and it especially when it kind of opens up that door to like as you're going through the journey of the record. So it is a cool point in the record for me personally.
Yeah, and a small little thing about that track, we were already like out of the studio and everything, and Drew started mixing, and he added the last like minute and a half. That's just kind of like a little electronic outro of just cool drums and keyboards and stuff, and he just added it and sent it over. And he was like, "Hey, I really felt like Kyle would have loved this, and so I just put it in the song. And if you don't want it, you don't have to have it." But it just kind of reminded me why we made the record and why we specifically went with Drew for the record, because he really understood what we were going through. We made Cold Like War with Drew, and him and Kyle really bonded and really understood each other on a level of what sounds they liked, how they like their drums to sound, how they like their keys to sound, and all that stuff. And so for Drew to just like throw that in once we're already gone, and technically he just has to mix the songs and it's job over, but he went back in and wrote a whole little outro to the song, just because he felt like Kyle would really love it. And that's kind of really like special to me. That song rips. That's all I
Yeah,
get. That song rips. I
we
love
basically
it.
wanted to write an encoder. There's a song called Encoder on Cold Like War, and it's just this weird, heavy song. And it was just like a lot of, we never really done anything like it before. And so we wanted to continue that process of doing just something weird and heavy. And it was just fun because at that point you get to experiment. There's no formula, there's nothing crazy, nothing, no guidelines really to anything. And which is a lot of fun because usually you go in there with like, okay, like there's certain things that need to be on the record, and there's certain spots we want to hit on certain emotions, and this is kind of the formula to do that, or this is kind of the way to do that. But with this song specifically, it was just like, just write a pissed off, heavy, weird fucking song, and we got to do exactly that. So that's my take on it. It was just a lot of fun and a lot of just like, well, that sounds cool. What if we did A sharp and then at the end drop it to drop F and make it even heavier? So cool, fun stuff like that.
This song's like my baby. I didn't get to have a hand in actually writing this one at all, but the guys went down and worked with Cody from Wage War. And so when they came back with a song, and it was an awesome song, but everyone was unsure if it would work for us or not because it was Cody singing it, and Cody has a very different style than I have as a singer. And everyone was like a little unsure about the song and like if it would work on the album. And I had a lot of faith in it. I was like, let's just try me tracking it and like, make it my style and see what happens. And then it did start to sound, more like it belonged on the record. And we all really liked it. And I've always been in love with the song. So I was amped then that it was like being considered for the album. And so yeah, the song is special to me.
Yeah, I'm stoked it made it on the record. At the very start of the studio, we sat down and we went through every demo that we had. There was like 30 of them. We like wrote them on note cards. We made like a spreadsheet. And this song in particular, Dave was like, this one has to be on the record. This one, this one. The rest of us were like, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Like, it's okay. And Dave was like, no, it's this one. Like, I promise this one will be awesome. And we're like, okay. And we did it. And Dave was right. It turned out great and heavy, and I think it comes at the right place on the record a little later. I think it'd be weird lyrically if that was really like early on in the record.
Yeah, for sure.
So that one came right after Darkbloom in the writing process. Andy and I were there in LA, and we had written Darkbloom. We were like, oh, I guess let's try another song, might as well. And it just started to formulate. And we knew as we were writing it that it was more of like a closer piece to a record, just with, I don't know, the chord structure and how it sounded. And that was cool because at that point we didn't really have a song that could be, you know, ending a record, or really towards the end. And yeah, that, I mean, we wrote it really quickly. I really like that song. And anyone else?
Yeah, it sounded sweet. It was really funny too because we had kind of come off this high of writing this super aggressive Darkbloom song, and this was kind of more like a learning to survive kind of feel to it without us even knowing it. And it was really funny too because I don't know, like Josh and I, like before Dave got there, we were driving to the studio every morning, and I was playing like Kid Leroy a bunch. And I just remember like Josh being like, all right, this is kind of cool. And now we jam it a lot, but it's, I can kind of almost hear some of like not like his vocal patterns or melodies, but like, I even think we were driving there and it was like kind of more chill. And then that kind of, I think maybe some of that seeped its way into the writing of that song. So we just kind of show up early in the morning and just had this kind of vibe going. And then that song evolved out of nowhere just to be this like cool closing song, and it just worked out perfectly. And it's kind of funny even looking back at the record, like you have songs like The Anchor that were written years ago, or Plagued written years ago, that happen to fall right into the right pieces of where they need to be. And this song was the second song written in the studio at the time, but it was the last song, well, second to last song. So it was kind of cool how it all worked out. And that was just a fun one. And when Dave came in too, he put his vocals on it. It sounded so fucking awesome. It was just really cool to hear it, you know, after working on just the music, hearing Dave come in and do it. So yeah, it was a good one. It's good second to last track.
I think in my mind it was always the last track, but the order of the 8 in between, because Darkbloom, as soon as we wrote it, we knew that was the opening track. And in my mind, promise you, it's probably the last track. But the order of the other 8 in between, we went through like 20 different orders. We had a whiteboard in the studio, and I swear to God, every day we're erasing one song and switching the order and all that. And I do think that's like important on a record, but I think it's less important on a record when you feel like every song is truly great and the best you could have done on it. You know, admittedly, we've put out records where I haven't felt as strongly about every single song on the record before. And in times like that, it's like, oh, well, you know, maybe we stick that song in between 2 really hype songs, so the lull isn't so bad. But I don't think we've had a record since To Plant a Seed that I've felt like every song is really just the best we absolutely could have done for that song.